Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Marvel's The Avengers, starring Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Tom Hiddleston, Clark Gregg, and Colby Smulders, and I couldn't name Samuel Jackson because I couldn't fit the name, and so many other peoples, directed by Joss Whedon. That's too much to cast. I'll bet you Infinity War will get like that too, to be clear. And before I get into this movie, I remember seeing this movie a bunch of times in theaters. Just a bunch. I couldn't name track. I think it was 12 times in theaters, something like that. I can't remember, but what I'm about to think about is what I'm about to think about now. This is recording. So let's get into it. We get introduced to the Tesseract as we saw in Captain America, the first Avenger, and these creatures in space called the Chitauri that the Avengers fight later in the movie. And the next scene we get introduced to Nick Fury, played by Samuel Jackson, Agent Coulson, or Phil Coulson as they once point out in the movie, played by Clark Gregg, and Maria Hill, played by Colby Smulders. And I have to say, I like those characters because they're badass for what they do in this movie. We go to the laboratory, and both characters returning from Thor, Eric Selvig, played by Stellan Skarsgård, working on the Tesseract, and watching him is Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner. And Selvig was a good to see again, and Hawkeye is twisted most of the movie, but I like the character. The reason I said twisted is because returning from Thor is Loki, played by Tom Hiddleston, and I said it back with Crimson Peak, and I'll say it again. He has charisma as a villain than in Thor. Or in Crimson Peak, might I add. Meaning he's a much better character here as Loki than he was in Thor. Turns Barton and Selvig into his personal flying monkeys from Wizard of Oz, for example. Which is a great line we'll get later in the movie. The chase between Fury and Loki with his men was an exciting sequence. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson, gets introduced getting beat up by a mob of 4 men, and Coulson calls out of the blue and says Barton's been exposed, and beats up the 4 mobsters while tied up on the chair. And I love Black Widow where a whole lot better than in Iron Man 2, where she only had one badass thing to do, whereas here she got more badass things to do. And I love the way how she's talking to Coulson in the phone, and she thinks she's getting Stark again, and Coulson says, "Oh, I've got Stark. You get the big guy," meaning the Hulk. And her face was funny as she was thinking, "Oh shit, I'm dead." Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, played by Mark Ruffalo this time, who pulls off portraying a scientist more than Edward Norton is better off portraying a tough guy. And Ruffalo's Hulk is a much more badass here than any of the other movies, and I'm in love with this Hulk. I'd kiss it. And the way he screams, "Stop lying to me," and the next thing you know, Black Widow pulls a gun out at him, and I was like, oh crap, I was really on the edge of my seat, and then I am now. The meeting with S.H.I.E.L.D. councilmen talking with Fury about how they need a response team. And I like the line Fury says to them, "The war is won by soldiers." And we move on to Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, beating up on multiple punching bags, which I thought was funny. But Cap is again really badass, and I like him here more than in Captain America, the first Avenger, in the present day. Robert Downey Jr. back as Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, is back, and I honestly don't like him here. Well, let me just rephrase that. He's okay here. And the more he's in these movies, the less I like him, because he doesn't do well in team in general. His motor goes from really liking him in Iron Man 1 and 2 to not great, which is here in next week's movie, Iron Man 3, to really hating him in the upcoming reviews, such of, for example, The Avengers Age of Ultron, to Captain America Civil War, to hell, even Spider-Man Homecoming. But I'll talk about those in later shows. And his girlfriend, Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, is isn't important here either, and I honestly do not know why she's in this movie. Plus, she doesn't do much here anyways, so that's a real problem. I love the scene when Coulson says he's to Steve he's seeing him asleep because it's awkward and creepy. Like, how personal and far can he go? It was really funny, and I also really like when we first see Steve betting on Nick Fury saying $10, for example, as they says that they've never seen anything like Shield before. He just gives him this $10 like straight up. Again, really funny. I really hate it when Hawkeye flexes his muscles and opens his bow with his arrows. And I honestly thought he looked way too silly. But I do like the scene in the museum when Loki gets some spiky metal thing to put on a man's eye so Hawkeye can get a distraction. I was like, ouch, that's gotta hurt. But that was intense. Meanwhile, Captain America tries to take Loki down until Iron Man, playing AC/DC's Shoot to Thrill, does take Loki down and puts him on the plane until we get to Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth again, who is more badass and funny this time than he ever was in Thor. And I like him here, unlike in Thor. The Iron Man vs. Thor fight felt a little intense because who will win this fight, Iron Man or Thor? But that fight was a lot of fun to me until Captain America comes in intervening and Thor hits his Captain America shield, which was the best moment of the fight, in my opinion, because I loved Thor's hammer hitting Captain America's shield. It sounds great. My only issue with that scene is, why doesn't Loki just run away? I mean, it sounds baffling to me, but Thor will catch him eventually. Thor's funny line about Loki on how he's adopted, that was absolutely hilarious to me. I love the jokes like Tony spotting a guy playing Galaga and the way he says no hard feelings, Point Break, after Tony leaving the room, and the next thing you know, he's playing Galaga again, totally hysterical. Meanwhile, we're having a quiet dialogue moment. Black Widow talks to Loki about what he's done with Hawkeye, and while they talk to Loki, calls Black Widow a mewling quim, which, believe it or not, fun fact, it's a Shakespearean saying of a woman's C word. I'm not going to say it out loud, because it's... And I'm not going to really... And I'd rather not say it because that's an R-rated word when this is a PG-13 rated movie. But that moment made me nervous about what Loki would or will do to Black Widow. The team, along with Fury, are having an argument about what Loki wants Stark and Rogers arguing about, or who's the hero and puts on the suit, and Banner talks about the deleted alternate scene from The Incredible Hulk and how he puts a gun in him and the Hulk spits it out was a great way to explain how the Hulk can't be killed. Tony and Steve get to the lever while Black Widow is trying to keep Bruce Banner calm, but doesn't succeed, and Bruce turns into the Hulk and attacks Black Widow until Thor comes in, and we get a Thor versus Hulk battle, which I absolutely like, especially how they portray it like in the comic books, where the Hulk tries to pick up Thor's hammer, but he can't, and the Hulk tries to beat Thor's ass until he gets approached by an air jet, and the Hulk goes after it. And it was really funny how the Hulk throws the pilot out and he parachutes, which is just absolutely hilarious. And Black Widow goes badass and beats Hawkeye's ass to knock Loki's scepter brain and knocks him out, and Thor gets tossed down in the Hulk cage, and Coulson dies. And I felt really bad for Coulson because I really liked him in here more than the other three movies. While the Avengers lick their wounds, Loki's men attack they come up with a plan, and they know where Loki is, which is the Stark Tower in New York. And Stark goes to his tower and talks to Loki and threatens him and has a drink. And that's when the Jatari come to New York from outer space and Loki's scepter. And that's when the big battle begins and the Avengers begin to assemble. Iron Man starts shooting the Jatari, Thor fights off Loki for a couple of minutes while Hawkeye with Black Widow and Captain America gets shot down on a plane, but comes out of the plane just fine. Then Iron Man and Thor come in after Thor beats a little bit of Loki's ass and escapes suddenly, and Iron Man goes inside a giant Jatari monster and kills it off with Banner's becoming the Hulk when his secret is he's always angry. And the Hulk beats the giant Jatari's ass, and Iron Man shoots it and kills it off when they all work as a team, starting with the Hulk smashing them off and Thor lighting them bastards up. And Hawkeye shoots every single one of his arrows, Black Widow just jumping on the Jatari's alien vehicle. Captain America is on the ground beating the Jatari and saving civilians' lives. And Iron Man is all over the skies shooting some of the Jatari. And I absolutely found when the Hulk beating and Thor beating up a giant Jatari knocks him out. And as soon as they breathe, the Hulk just punches Thor like a snap of a finger. Hysterical. Another thing I found absolutely hysterical was when the Hulk beats up Loki and calls him a puny god. I love how funny that was when Iron Man can stop a missile from going to Manhattan to in space to blow up the Jatari land. Blows it up. Made me think of how the battle droids turned themselves off in the Phantom Menace in Star Wars, might I add, and that was a real problem as well. And Black Widow closing the opening of the space with Loki's scepter, and Stark makes it out by an inch. Well, they can't kill him for a reason. Iron Man 3 is the next in the installment. The Hulk stops Iron Man from falling down too fast, and it turns out Stark is alive and talks about trying shawarma, which will lead to a great scene later on in the credits. But the Avengers are really popular now after that fight in New York. And I really like that. And we get a Stan Lee cameo saying, "Superheroes, give me a break." And I love that cameo by Stan Lee. We get our mid-credits scene when the space guy, called the Other, by the way, says something to challenge them is to court death, and we see Thanos smiling liking the idea, and smiles and I love that moment of the film, with the credits and the music. And the after-credits scene of them eating shawarma was just hilarious. I cracked up super loud. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 9.3 out of 10. This movie is absolutely great. It's fun, hilarious, and totally action-packed. There were problems, sure, and I love the characters, except Iron Man was just fine here. But this is the best team-up crossover movie I've ever seen. Even Justice League can't beat it at all. I recommend watching this movie leading up to Infinity War. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with Iron Man 3. And before I say goodbye, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Watch more videos. And be sure to leave a positive comment in the bottom if you can. And until next time, Avengers Assemble!